Good morning. Good morning. So we're going to talk about influence this morning. And I believe in interaction. So the general rule of thumb is when I'm quiet, somebody else has to start talking, okay? So my first question of the day is, why is influence important for us as business leaders? Now, mind you, I am an HR guy at heart, which means I have the ability to stare at people until they answer me. Why is influence so important to us?
Because it helps us get the outcomes we want.
Okay, so it helps us get the outcomes we want. Okay? I'm okay with that. It motivates who? Motivates people, absolutely, if done properly. Okay? What else does influence do for us as leaders? So it can help us get results. What else can it help us do? You're saying that's what we're here to find out, Ed. Tell us. Tell us. Okay, so I want you you got a little bit of homework here, although it's in-class work right now. Get your pens out, get your notepad out. Think of someone who has been a tremendous influence on you. Doesn't matter where from, what part of your life, but write their name down. Who has been an influence on you? We're going to reference this person in a little bit, but I want you thinking about this. Any walk of life, doesn't have to be a business person. Who's had influence on you? I'm not going to ask you about them just yet. Okay, so let's look at, if we can get going here, why do we influence? So we mentioned that we want to get results. Absolutely, that's a reason to influence. We want to motivate people. Absolutely, that's a reason we want to influence. The big question now is, who do you influence? In your role, in your institution right now, who do you influence? And don't say employees, that's a cop-out. Be more specific for me. Customers. So are you in a customer-facing role?
I'm in marketing.
There you go. So think about it, right? Sales and marketing is all about influence. They're trying to get customers to come into your institution to do business with you. Okay? Is there anything wrong with that type of influence? Oh, you guys are tough. No, thank you. There's not, right? We need that. We need that influence. Now, if we're going to go buy a car, we don't always like that level of pressure of influence. But sure, anyone in sales is influencing because they want us to buy the product or the service that they're offering. Okay? Who else do you influence? Fellow coworkers. In what way?
So the ones that managers that are on the same level as I, we bounce stuff off each other. We're able to problem solve together.
Okay.
So
So peers, we're going to talk about that. That's an important group. A lot of times when we think about influence, we think about it in terms of, oh, well, I'm influencing people below me. But absolutely, peer-level influence is something we're going to focus on today. It's critical to our leadership development. Who else do you influence? So outside of work, your children, one would hope so, right? So if you're involved perhaps in the community in some way, whether it's with children's initiatives or any other type of good community-based organization, you're trying to influence maybe people to volunteer for that service, help raise money for that organization, those kinds of things. So influence plays a role in our lives, whether it's just workplace or it's personal. How many people do you try to influence in a day, would you say? Dozens, okay. And what's your role that you would say dozens?
I run a business line
Okay.
for a software company.
Okay. So dozens of people. The average person consciously attempts to influence 4 people a day. consciously, okay? Over the course of our lifetimes, most sociologists agree that we will influence 10,000 people in our lifetimes. Now, if you're like me, that's a big number, and you think, whoa, really 10,000 people? I don't know 10,000 people. How am I supposed to influence 10,000 people? Okay? You're going to see it's going to be the waterfall effect. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. So I want you to keep in mind not only the person has influenced you, because we're going to come back to them, but who you influence and why you want to influence them. Okay. I want you to draw this compass on your paper there for me. Label it and put a dot right there in the middle. No extra points for neatness. I am not an artist, that's why I speak. What do you think the dot in the middle represents? Us, very good. It represents you. Specifically, it represents your self-leadership. Now, what do I mean by self-leadership? Well, it's the concept of how we conduct ourselves. If we don't lead ourselves well, it's hard to lead others. There's that old saying, you can't love somebody else till you truly love yourself. Okay, it's the same concept. So what is self-leadership? I want you to think about the last time somebody let you down in the workplace. They didn't follow through on what they were supposed to follow through on. How did you feel about that? You were frustrated with them, okay? They made a commitment, didn't follow through. How else did it make you feel? I'm sorry? Disappointed? Anyone angry? No angry bankers? No? Oh, there's an angry banker, okay. So, what happened when that person let you down? Did they tell you they let you down? What happened there? The person what? You had to pick up that person's slack. Did they give you an excuse for why they let you down? No. No dog ate my homework, none of that stuff. So here's the problem. When other people let us down, what goes through our mind? A lot of times it's, oh, well, they can't be relied upon. Thought I could trust them. Can't trust them now. Better just do it myself, okay? We don't let that person off the hook for letting us down. Here's self-leadership. When's the last time you let somebody down? And how did you react to yourself? Was it, well, I was having a bad day. It's really not a big deal. Oh, well, I had more important things to do. Oh, well, they'll get over it. Do you see where I'm going with this? When we hold other people to a standard different than we hold ourselves to, we are not leading ourselves well. And so we must be holding ourselves accountable first. We must be developing ourselves first before we can ever have influence over another person. Okay? So it all starts with self-leadership. Now, next thing I want you to do, draw a line going south. Now, I know in banking you guys deal with finances. This has nothing to do with being in the red, okay? We're not talking about finances here. What do you think the line going south represents with regards to your leadership? We started with you. Come on, you guys have seen org charts, right? What's that? Who you manage. Thank you. Who you manage, okay? We call this positional leadership. And what that means is that just by feature of our title, people will follow us. Now, does that mean we have influence over them? Not necessarily. But because we have a title, they'll follow us because of our title. Now, how much time will someone follow you just because of the title that you have? I'm going to give you the answer. Not very long. Okay? Think about the last time you got a new boss. You were probably thinking, well, this is my new boss. We're going to see how this goes. I'm going to give them a month or so. And when you got that new boss, what were you thinking in your mind? What were you going to give them time to prove to you? What are you going to give them time to prove to you? If they could do their job. Okay. What else? A lot of very unselfish people in here. I like this. If they know what they're talking about, and what are they going to do for me? What's in it for me? I got this new boss. What's in it for me? Come on, you guys never thought about that? Like, are they going to like me? Are they going to help me? Are they going to be a meanie to me? Right? We're kidding ourselves if we don't think about those things. And so we only have a short period of time to show people that we care about them, to transition out of just being a positional leader, because the title doesn't last. Now, take a look at that name you wrote down. How many of those names were from your personal life? Show of hands. Easily more than half. How many of them were from your business life? Only a couple. How many were from maybe like a teacher or something from your faith tradition? No, what were the rest of you? Sports coach, something like that? So that should show you right there. Over half of this room says, oh, it was maybe a parent or it was a family member, right? Now, you could argue, well, if it was a father, a mother, a grandmother, something like that, well, that's a position. I would disagree, okay? My point is that you don't have to have a position to be influential. And we're going to see that, okay? Because position only buys us that short period of time. Now, go ahead and draw a line east to west, or west to east, whichever your preference happens to be. What do you think this represents? Peers, thank you. You guys are catching on. This is peer leadership. Now, here's the cool thing. When we're talking about peer leadership, what we're talking about is that the people that are on the same level with us in our organization recognize us as leaders. They recognize that we have some level of influence in the organization, and they trust us and want to follow us informally, even though they might be on the same level in the org chart with us. This is where true influence starts to happen. These people have no other reason to follow you. They're not below you in the pecking order. You're sitting on the same committees with them. You probably have the same levels of responsibility, and yet they're following you. This is where influence truly begins. When you have your peers looking at you as a leader, now you're doing something right. Peer-level leadership is where most people end up, and there's nothing wrong with that. If we were all peer-level leaders, we would have much more successful workplaces. But there is one higher level of leadership, and that's going up. So go ahead and draw your arrow going up to north. And this is where the magic sauce is. This is leading up. Now, a lot of people think, oh, that's where you lead your boss. No. This is where those peers that you have influenced begin to be influencers in their own right. You have influenced people to become other influencers. That's the waterfall effect. And that's what leading up is all about. And that's what I believe we're called to do as leaders in business today. We are called to influence others in a way that they want to begin influencing other people. That's how we grow leaders in our organizations. Some people call it, well, that's career development ed. Sure it is. That's personnel development ed. Yep, sure it is. But it's all about creating other leaders. When we start to create other leaders, our influence begins to multiply exponentially. And that's how we get to 10,000 people in a lifetime. Now, I asked earlier, why do you want to influence? Give me the name of a really good leader in the public forum who has lots of influence? Let's stay away from politics, please. Give me a good leader in the public forum. The Pope, okay? From a faith-based tradition, absolutely. Has influence over folks of the Catholic faith, okay? And outside the faith in some cases. Who else has influence? Nick Saban has influence. I'm in Alabama. See, now, Beth didn't do my bio justice. I'm a Notre Dame fan, and you guys have owned us for a while now, and so I can't really talk trash, so I won't. But, okay, yes, I will go. He has a tremendous amount of influence over his players, right? Players love him. What about Hitler? Was Hitler a good leader? He was very influential, right? Now, when I bring this up, this is a dangerous, dangerous topic, right? Because, for obvious reasons. But I want you to think about this for a moment. Did the guy have followers? Yes. Did his followers trust him? Yep, his inner circle trusted him. Did they do what he wanted unquestioningly? What else do you want as a leader? Do you want people to follow you? Do you want people to trust you? Do you want people to move along with your vision unquestionably? So the reason I bring this up is that we can use our influence for really bad things. So just the fact that we're influential isn't enough. There has to be that gold standard of why I want to be an influencer. And what are the ways that I need to influence to do things properly? I love this quote from John Maxwell, that leadership is just influence. That's it. And when you think about it, can you be a leader without influence? If you're not influencing people, are they following you? Nope. And if you don't have followers, what are you doing? You're just out for a walk, folks. That's it. You're just out for a walk, which is fine, okay? But if you want to be a leader, you have to develop your influence. And I love that quote because it's so, so true. If we can't influence our employees, our customers, to do the things that we need them to do to meet our institution's vision, then we're not true leaders. Influence is that important. So we mentioned earlier it's not about position, right? So I don't care if you're sitting here saying, well, gee, Ed, I'm not in a position right now where I've got anyone reporting to me. Why is it important that you work on your leadership now, even though you don't have anyone reporting to you?
When you get in a leadership position, you know what you're doing.
You're there, right? When you get the position, you're ready. Think about it. Think about sports for a minute. Would you ever, so my daughter plays softball, and would you ever think, well, you know what, I want to play softball. I've never played softball before, but you know what, I'm not even going to worry about learning to swing a bat. I'll just show up, and I'll probably get a scholarship to Bama. We would never think that, right? No. We've got to prepare. We've got to work hard. Maybe we take some lessons. We've got to play rec ball. Maybe we play tournament ball, whatever, right? To get the skill set we need to get to our goal. And yet sometimes in the workplace, we say, well, I'll work on my leadership stuff when I get a leadership position. It doesn't work that way. If we don't work on the skills that we need to get to the next level, we don't get to the next level. It's too late at that point. Because that positional leadership we talked about earlier, remember, you only have that small period of time to show your people what you're made of. And if you don't have the skill set, you've lost them right from the start. You might be a nice person. They might appreciate you for being a sweet person. But you will never be a leader in their eyes because you don't have the skill set. So regardless of where you're at on your career journey right now, regardless of where you're at on the company totem pole, it's imperative that we work on our leadership and our influence. It's absolutely imperative to get to where we want to get to. Now, I want you to think about something for a minute here. So let's say that, Tracy, I'm going to pick on Tracy here for a minute. So if I wanted to hold Tracy down in his seat and keep him from standing up, what would I do? What would I do to you? Push down on his shoulders, right? I'd put my hands on his shoulders. We're not going to do all that mess because of COVID, right? But I would push down, and I would start doing this, right? I would put the force of my body down onto him. Look what happens when I do that, right? I'm pushing down. I have shrunk myself down in order to hold him down. That's what happens when we don't develop the people around us. We make ourselves smaller by actively trying to keep someone down. And I don't know about you, but I have worked for someone like that who didn't believe. In fact, he told me early on, he said, Ed, if you want to get somewhere in this company, make sure you don't share all your knowledge. Because if you share all your knowledge, you're not going to be valuable. Anyone believe that statement? Hope not. Horrible advice. Horrible advice to a 22-year-old kid, right? And I kind of knew it then. Like, this doesn't make any sense, right? Because what I realized as I was going through my career was, wait a minute, the more I hold inside, the more valuable I become in that position. That's it, right? I end up holding myself back. So when we try to keep other people in their places, we make ourselves smaller. And leaders stand tall. Take a look at this picture, right? These guys they're climbing this craggy mountain, and they're pulling each other up. So if Tracy was on the ground and I wanted to help him up, I'd grab him by the hand, I'd stand up really tall, and I'd pull, right? Because I'm helping him to grow, I'm growing. And so when we think about influence, I know for me, that's one of the things that resonates with me about why I need to be an influencer. Because I really believe in helping other people to grow, regardless of who those people are, right? Whether it's the softball girls that I coach, whether it's the folks in my leadership development classes, whether it's my team, doesn't matter. Like, I just believe that that's what we're called to do, is to share our ability to develop others. Because that's what helps us to get to where we want to get to. Now, here are the different ways we can influence, from worst to first. We're not going to talk about all of them. Just take a quick look at this list for me. What do you believe is the most commonly used method of influence in the American workplace today based on this list? Hint, it is not respect. And I even give you another hint. We've talked a lot about position. It's not positional either. Outside of what? Outside, so you think maybe manipulation. Okay. Any other thoughts? Intimidation. Intimidation is the most common. Again, when you look at organizational development specialists, they find that unfortunately it's intimidation. Now, that does not mean that I'm standing over you banging my fist, okay? Intimidation can happen in a lot of different ways. I mean, just look at this poor little Chihuahua, right? He's just a little guy up there. Now, Great Danes can be really nice dogs, but they're intimidating, right? I mean, gosh, we could almost ride those things. They're so big. They intimidate me. So think about this little guy here. Sometimes this is a positional kind of scenario, okay, where just the position can be intimidating. Now, I recall my first roles in business were in operations, and then I moved into human resources. And I remember having a challenge where we were a union shop, and for employees to move up, mostly it was based on seniority. But we had a situation where an employee's seniority came up to move to the next level, but he may not have had all the qualifications. And there were a lot of other issues surrounding this gentleman. And so from an HR perspective, I said, hey, he's not ready to go, not going to allow it. Now, the gentleman who was what we called our division manager, who basically ran numerous facilities, he's asking me about the reasons for my saying he's not ready. And this gentleman puts his arm, we're walking through the operation, he puts his arm around me. Now, he was old enough to be my father, okay? Puts his arm around me, and we're walking. He says, Eddie, you got to understand something. Those folks don't always think like you and I think. And so we need to be thinking a little bit differently. Now, was that intimidation? Or was he giving me fatherly, sage advice? What do you think? I gave you all the clues. If someone 2 levels above you put their arm around you and started basically whispering in your ear, would you feel intimidated into doing what he wanted or she wanted you to do? Yeah. It's subtle, right? Intimidation is not always the big barking dog, the one who's yelling the loudest. That's not necessarily what intimidation is. It can be, okay? But it's the subtle ways where we want things done because we want them done our way. That famed saying, we're going to do it this way because we've always done it this way. It's intimidation, okay? It's a challenge in today's workplace. What does intimidation do to the workplace? If that starts to invade the culture, what happens? People leave. And what happens before they leave? Bad morale. Disengagement. Okay? That's the danger of intimidation. Disengagement. And so someone said earlier, one of the reasons we want to influence is because we want to motivate people. Absolutely. But intimidation is a way that we can influence. Not a good one, though, right? And so when we think about intimidation, again, think about where you're at on your career path, where you're at on the company pecking order, if you will. Do your actions ever come across potentially as intimidating? We have to ask that of ourselves. Some of you are rather tall, larger people. It can be intimidating. Just the height, right? Maybe you dress a little bit nicer than the other person. It could be intimidating to that person. Who knows? It could be all kinds of things that we're not intentionally doing or thinking of doing that could have an intimidating effect on someone. And so I would ask you as homework to think about this. Are there times where perhaps unknowingly you're intimidating those that you're supposed to be influencing in a positive way? Okay? And I will tell you, if you've got team members who don't come to you to talk to you, who aren't comfortable maybe having tough discussions with you, if I sat down with them and I said, do you ever feel intimidated? I guarantee you I would hear yes. So just think about that, because you're going to have to overcome that if you want to be a really good influencer, all right? Now, why do you want to influence? I asked this question earlier. Why? I believe the why should be, in part, selfishness. Because you should want to hit your goals, right? If you hit your goals, what happens? If y'all don't know, come to my next session. We're going to talk about it. I'm sorry? We grow. Okay. What else happens if you hit your goals? You get rewarded, right? Maybe you get some money in your pocket. You get bonuses. You advance in the organization, which leads to pay raises. There's lots of stuff in it for us if we hit our goals. But I'm here to tell you the only way you can hit your goals is to have other people helping you hit your goals, right? It's impossible. Marketing. You could put the best marketing plan together, but what else has to happen? Who? Okay? So, I don't know, I'm hearing radio ads for your institution, I'm seeing billboards, and I think, I might like to make a change. And I'm seeing all this great marketing. I'm going to go into one of her branches. And the frontline person who's probably a teller, right, doesn't greet me, is kind of rude, feels like it's a hassle. All her marketing, gone, right? Because there was not the buy-in on the product we were selling and the services we were selling from the other frontline people. That's a lack of influence. Maybe not solely on the marketing team's function, but certainly on the branch manager's ability to influence his or her team to follow through on those things. So from a marketing perspective, depending on the size of her institution, she can't get all the tellers on board, but what she can do is get all the branch managers on board, right? That's influence. You guys are all familiar with Andrew Carnegie, right? At one point, he was one of the world's most wealthiest men, okay? Self-made guy. And at one point, he had 42 millionaires working for him. Now, in today's money, that's $20 million, okay? And he was being interviewed, and the reporter said, well, Mr. Carnegie, do you know you've got 42 millionaires working for you? He said, I didn't know that. And she said, where did you find 42 millionaires to come work for you? He said, well, they weren't millionaires when they came to work for me. He developed them. And he used this analogy. He said, what do you do when you go mining for gold? Do you walk in, any of you ever been in a cave? Is it a real sexy place to be? It's cold, it's damp, it's wet, it's dripping, it's gray. Now, if you're in a pretty cave, you see the pretty stalactites and stalagmites, okay? Do you really think that gold mining is any different than that? It's not. It's still a damp, dark, nasty place. What do you have to do to get to the gold? Dig, right? Dig through lots of crud and dirt and muck. And then what else do you have to do? I'm sorry? Oh, sift through it. Okay, got to sift through all the dirt and the crud to find the gold nuggets. What else do I got to do? Clean it? Yep, absolutely. Sorry, with the mass, it is a little difficult for me. Clean it, right? So think about that when it comes to your people, right? You have leadership potential in your people that is unmined gold. But you're going to have to sift through your people. You're going to have to dig around. You're going to have to polish them up. And we do that through investing in their self-development as their leader. That's where your influence comes from. And that's the analogy that Carnegie was trying to share with this reporter is you develop people to be successful. That's how these guys became millionaires. Not because I went out and found them, and not because becoming a millionaire was the end result. I developed them to be the best that they could be, and that was the end result. It's huge. Now, here's the thing. Trust. Trust is key, and that's why I asked you if you have people on your team that you suspect might not be able to be fully open with you. It means they don't trust you, okay? And it means that they're probably following you somewhat positionally, and perhaps there's a bit of manipulation going on, okay? Trust is key. It is central to all that we do. We will have no influence over somebody if we don't have trust with that person. So the question is, how do we develop trust? What do you think is one way to develop trust? Communicate. Huge way, right? As openly as we know how and are able. Communication, absolutely key. I'm doing some work right now with an insurance company that's growing like mad, has a pretty good culture overall, but they're struggling. And one of the things that they're struggling with is communication, because what the CEO is saying is not resonating with the employees. There's a disconnect there. And so they're starting to get a little mistrustful of his motives for growth. And they're still at a size where the CEO is very accessible to all employees. But the trust is starting to wane, and he felt it. So kudos to him. But it did come back to communication, okay? They weren't buying what he was selling. Communication is critical. What else can we do to build trust? Follow through, right? We talked about self-leadership. We have to hold ourselves accountable to do the things that we've promised we would do for our people. Don't let your people down. And for Pete's sake, if you do, apologize make it right. I know one of the things, I'll share a skeleton. One of the things that happens to me when I get stressed is I start to get a little bit snippy. And I tell the folks that work with me all the time, if I start getting snippy, call me out on it. You have the right to call me out and say, Ed, knock it off. And they do. Because I've told them, I guarantee you it's not you that I'm stressed over, and I don't intend to be snippy with you. And it's something I know I need to work on. It is a weakness, okay? We all have them. And I believe that I can share that with my people because they know it and they see it. So what am I really doing? I'm just admitting something they already see in me. But you want to talk about building trust. Be your honest self with your people. Now, if you're miserable in your job and hate your company, you probably should just leave and not share that with your people. That's not going to motivate them, okay? But it's okay to admit your faults. Your people see them. Don't kid yourself, okay? That's going to help build trust with your people, is to own up to the fact that you're on a journey too. We're all on the journey, trying to figure out this leadership thing, trying to make the world a better place, okay? I love this quote from Stephen Covey about trust in today's business environment. Because if we don't develop trust, what he's essentially saying is we're not going to have a very good business to run. And so when I look at this quote, it really rings true with me that if we don't have trust amongst our employees with leadership and amongst our team leads and our executive team, we are not going to be able to move at the speed we want to move. And that's where this insurance company was smart. They said, you know, we're starting to have issues, and it's going to impact our ability to hit our business goals. We've got to get this fixed. Even though if you walked into there, you'd be like, this is a pretty cool place. Wow. And it is. But they were smart enough to realize, whoa, something's changing here as we're on this accelerated growth path. And if we don't get it fixed, we could not only stop growing, but we might crash and burn. And so when you think about trust amongst your team, think about where you're at with that trust. Does your team trust you? Do you trust them? And if not, what do we do about that? I think the best analogy I think of when it comes to human interactions, and for those of you that are Pink Floyd fans, you will appreciate this. Think about anytime you have an interaction with someone on some sort of meaningful level. I believe that you're either putting a brick on a wall between you and that person if it doesn't go well, or you're taking a brick off of that wall if it does go well. But obviously, if too many interactions are putting bricks on the wall is up between you and that person. Now there's no trust, there's no communication, there's no relationship, nothing. I can't even see you, okay? And so look for that opportunity to take bricks off of walls between you and your people and you and your peers. Even that person you really don't like on a personal level. I get it. We've all got them in our lives. Let's not kid ourselves. But we need those people too to be successful. Because if we don't have the trust, forget it. Now, here's what your people want to know. You want to have influence over them? Here's the magic sauce. They want to know these three things. Do you care about me? I asked earlier, when you get a new boss, what do you think of? Tell me that's not one of the things you want to know about your new boss. Do you actually care about who I am and what I want to be in this organization? People want to know that you care about them. There are lots of ways to show that you care. If you want a great read on caring for your employees, read Hug Your People. It's not a physical hug, obviously. It's written by a gentleman by the name of Jack Mitchell. He runs a chain of high-end business clothing stores in Manhattan and up through Connecticut. And it's a simple read, and it's not rocket science. That's the beauty of it. He talks about the fact that he knows his people. He knows who the soccer moms are. He knows who the scouting dads are. He knows who the band leaders are. He knows those little things about his people. And so when one person goes above and beyond to do something for him, rather than just a simple pat on the back, if it's one of his soccer moms, she gets a gas card because he knows that she's always running the kids to soccer, okay? Or he knows that the camping dad with the scouts is always looking for the latest thing, so he might get a gift card to say like Dick's where he can go get some camping gear. It's those little things. Do you know the little things about your people? And if you don't think it's important, I will tell you, I just wrapped up focus groups with this insurance company, and one of the common themes was, we're growing so fast we don't know each other that well anymore. It used to be that we knew each other's spouses. We knew what the kids were into. We could sit around the lunch table and talk about these things. We're too big now. We don't know it. And they're all in one building. They do have an Ohio operation, okay? But they're still in one building, and they don't feel like they know each other. That's an element of caring. And one of the things that's a shame is that the company cut out, and I'm not really sure why just yet, is they used to allow the monthly department meetings for each department to be held off-site, go out for lunch, the whole bit. And they're certainly not in a situation where they got a cost cut because they're making money hand over fist. But they cut that out. So what are the people feeling like? Oh, well, now there was an opportunity for us to hang out with our team members in an environment that was a little bit less formal, and you took that away. Maybe it doesn't matter to you that we have a relationship. So people want to know that you care, okay? Next thing they want to know about is, can you help me? Can you help me become a better person, a better employee? Can you help me along my career path? They want to know this. That's what I believe. If you have people reporting to you, that's your job, above all else. Develop those people. It's not about gaining new customers or increasing deposit lines or writing loans. It is developing your people. Because if you develop your people, all those other things take care of themselves. That's your job when you put the manager stripe on your sleeve and you show up for work every day. Okay? Is to develop your people. And that's what people want to know. Can you help me get to where I want to get to? Now, the real challenge is, maybe you're saying, gee, Ed, we don't have a really large organization. There's not a whole lot of places for people to go. Is that a reason to not develop people? I think it was Richard Branson said, develop your people well enough they can leave, but treat them well enough that they'll stay. If you're afraid that, oh, I don't have anywhere to go for these people, so if I develop them, I'm just developing them for somebody else. Then treat them such that they'll stay. Show them that you care. Okay? These are not two different islands. They go right together. The final thing they want to know is, can I trust you? It's no different in your personal lives, right? You get burned from a trust perspective with someone in your personal life, it's done, right? It takes a lot to get over that. It's no different in our business lives. The first time you backstab somebody, you don't follow through, you lose trust, the bricks go on the wall. And no matter how much you show you care, no matter how much you're helping them, it's going to take a long time to build that trust back up. So we can't blow that as leaders. We will lose a tremendous amount of influence the first time that our people feel like we cannot be trusted. Now, if you want to increase your influence, there's a couple things you can do. Obviously, show your people you care, show your people you want to help them, and show them that you're trustworthy. All that, I believe, comes back from adding value to other people. What are you doing to add value to your people every single day? Adding value might mean training them to do something new, giving them the opportunity to work on something they've been wanting to work on. Could be giving them some flex time when they need it. It's the little things that matter that add value to others. I heard a story from an employee the other day from a trust perspective. This company has a pretty robust flex time policy. Most of their employees can flex, okay? But they have to let their manager know they're going to flex. And the employee called in and said, hey, didn't call in. The day before said, hey, my wife's got a thing. I'd like to flex so I can get my daughter on the bus. He was told no, that's not a reason to flex. Now, aside from any other business challenges where he would have had to be there at 8 o'clock instead of 9, how is putting your child on the bus not a reason to flex? Is that showing that we care about the employee? Nope. And I will tell you, there was no reason for the no to have happened there, okay? Does it show that we care about the employee? Does it show that we want to help the employee? Nope. That employee is bitter right now. And I'll go one further. I had an employee early on in my career. He was a blue-collar employee, and he could not stand management. Wouldn't talk to management. If he wasn't on the clock, he wouldn't talk to you. You know, sitting in the break room before the work shift starts, wouldn't look at management, nothing. And so one day, he was a delivery driver for us, and I had to do a safety ride with him. And I was just thinking, this is going to be the most miserable 10 hours I've ever spent, okay? I get on the truck with the guy, and he's being very curt, but he's now on the clock, so he has to talk to me, okay? And this was a union shop, so we had that dynamic going on. We make our first stop. Hey, how you doing? Every stop along the way, his customers loved him. Like, what the heck? This is like Jekyll and Hyde thing here. I don't know what's going on. So at lunchtime, I said, all right, what is going on? I don't understand. I'm new around here. You don't give me the time of day, but out here, your people love you. He says, I don't trust management. I said, okay, what'd I ever do to you? He says, you never did anything to me. I said, why don't you trust me? He said, I didn't say that. I said, I don't trust management. I said, well, okay, but if it wasn't me, why are you penalizing me? Because I don't trust management. I said, okay, I got it. Got the message. You don't trust management. Why? Now, our delivery drivers had uniforms to wear, company uniforms. And the company provided them. And so as they got worn or whatever, all the driver had to do was say, hey, my shirt's worn, pants are worn, get me a new thing, and no cost, right? He tells me how 15 years before, he had some tears in some of his shirts, and management would not order new shirts for him. And he felt that he was being told to go out in front of his customers and not look his most professional self. I said, well, that really stinks. But it was 15 years ago. He wouldn't let it go. Now, you might say that's an extreme example, Ed, but come on. You've got people that you've come in contact with that hold grudges like that. That's how deep trust and lack of adding value, the effects can go. So what are we doing to add value to our people? To make work not such a four-letter word. To make the workplace better, to make them better. Again, that's what we're called to as leaders of people. To develop them, to manage them well, to communicate, to build trust. All of those things lead to influence. Now, when we add value to ourselves, we add value to others. So I'm going to circle back around. One of the first things I said to you this morning was, with self-leadership, we have to work on ourselves. I know a couple years ago, I had an epiphany. I do so much leadership development and management development work with clients, and I realized, when's the last time I did anything for me? And I realized it had been a long time, because I'm so often speaking at conferences, like I don't go to conferences for a self-development. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to start taking some classes on leadership and some leadership theory and things as a way to open my mind up so that I can be better for my clients and add better value to them. It was critical for me. And so it's critical for all of you too. One of the challenges I think that we face is we come to conferences and we get this big brain dump of information and we hear all these great ideas. And then what do we do with them? I remember my last in-house job as an HR director. And my team had gone off to the National HR Conference. And we come back to our meeting, and our first meeting, and they're telling me all these great ideas they had. And I sat there and said, okay, what are we going to do with all that? And they just stared at me. Like, wait a minute, I just spent a lot of money to send you guys off. You came back with good ideas. What are we going to do with it? Go do something with it, okay? Bring the value back. So my challenge to all of you is, in the next 2 days, as you're hearing these good ideas, what value are you going to take back, not only to your people, but to your organization to make a difference? right? That's where influence starts. You're here, you're adding value to you, then we've got to share that value out with others. And so here's what I like to do as a way to check where I'm at in my journey. And believe it or not, I ask myself these 3 questions every day, at least once a day. After this session, I am going to ask myself these questions. After the afternoon session, I'm going to ask myself these questions again. So today's a 2-banger for me, okay? Anytime I have a significant meeting, interaction with someone, I ask myself this. Why? Because I want to figure out how I can be better. What can be done differently? Right? Doing the same thing over and over again is not only the recipe for insanity, it's a recipe for lack of influence over our people. So after your next, I don't know, maybe you have a discipline talk with somebody, or your next department meeting, or anything, ask yourself, okay, what went right about that? Because I want to replicate that, right? What didn't go so well that I can fix? And all in all, what do I have to do differently? Because even if something went well, maybe there's something more you can do. You will be amazed, I promise you, if you put these 3 questions into your consciousness and you ask yourself these things regularly, you will be amazed at the epiphanies that you will have. And I know that sounds terribly like motivational and everything, and almost corny, but I can just tell you it works for me. I started doing this about a year ago, and I have been amazed at the impact it's had on me in terms of my view of the world. If I really take a step back and I ask myself these things, even in situations where I'm walking away, maybe it was, in fact, I'm thinking of a really ugly situation, and I remember saying, what could I have done differently? And I kept coming back, looking at it from different angles, thinking, gosh, I don't know what else I could have done differently. Okay. Then I know I'm okay. So ask yourself these questions when you have the opportunity. But here's the thing with self-leadership. Lead yourself well if you want other people to follow you. That's where we started. That's where we're coming as we're in the home stretch here. Think about what you have to do to develop yourself as a leader. What are your glaring holes? Maybe it's something technical that you can fill in one of the sessions today. Maybe it's something that you've heard in here today, like, gosh, man, I need to pick up a good book or listen to a podcast or something regularly that's going to expand my mind about how to be a better manager, a better leader, to be there, more present for my people. Your people want to bring their full selves to work every day. And in order for them to be able to do that, they need to know that you trust them to bring their full selves to work every day, which means you probably need to bring your full self to work every day. Okay? So it all comes back to leading ourselves well, holding ourselves accountable to a different standard than maybe we have in the past. Think about the thing you've been meaning to work on, you keep putting it off. Get going on it. Do it. Your people will see it. Our ability to influence is the key to our leadership development. If I haven't sold you on that idea, I'm trying to influence all of you right now, right? If you haven't figured out that positively influencing your people is your key to self-growth, then I did something wrong up here and I've got to ask myself those questions. What do I got to do differently? Okay? It's that key. So from a homework perspective, I want you to think about this. What do I need to do to develop my people better? How can I be a more positive influence on my people? How do I communicate better and build trust with my people? Reflect on those things on your travels back. Take some time in the course of your day to reflect. You know, close the office door or something. Take 5 or 10 minutes to reflect on how that day is going. It's going to pay monster dividends. So what I'd like to end with is a quote that I find very valuable. It's from Jackie Robinson. And he said, "A life is not significant except for its impact on other lives." I believe that's what we're called to be as leaders. Whether that's leaders in our community or leaders in business, we're called to have an impact on other people. So my advice is go forth, be impactful, and be influential today and when you get back to the office. Thank you.